Breaking overnight, an Obama-appointed judge blocking the Trump administration from refusing asylum to illegal immigrants.
I hope that my fellow Americans in California will look what's happening in Tijuana and understand that this is not something that we want to come into the United States.
3 people are dead, including a police officer and a doctor, after a gunman opens fire at a hospital.
And they did what the heroic officers always do. They ran towards that gunfire.
Stacey Abrams refusing to say that Brian Kemp is the legitimate governor.
It was not a free and fair election.
Not accepting a result just because you don't like it without any evidence to back up your claims, that causes real problems.
At least 16 Democrats who would like to see Nancy Pelosi.
For Republicans, it's better to deal with the devil we know than the devil we don't. And we know that there are some real crazies coming in.
A 92-year-old veteran was honored at a Chick-fil-A.
Every time you come into our restaurant, you're family now, so you no longer have to pay for any of your meals.
It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Thank you very much for joining us live.
It's a short week.
Yeah.
Right, and you know how I know this? Steve liked this song? He played his thighs.
He played his thighs.
When he plays his thighs, he really likes the song.
He does. You do play your thighs.
I believe this is the Chainsmokers.
Right, that's good. That's why he's playing his thighs.
Y'all, aren't y'all excited? Thanksgiving's around the corner. That means turkey and your cookbook and all the good food and being around family and all the kids.
Right. His tradition of his cookbook goes back 3 months.
This is the first year.
We have been writing that cookbook for 32 years.
Right.
Yeah, you have. But this is the first year we all get to enjoy it.
That's right. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. A busy Tuesday, and we're going to start with some breaking news out of the West Coast. A judge out in San Francisco last night ruled that the Trump administration is breaking the law. That's him, U.S. District Judge John Tagar, nominated by Barack Obama back in 2012 to take the court. He essentially said, when the president came out and said, if you want asylum, you got to go through a port of entry. You can't just walk across the Rio Grande River or slink through the desert. You've got to come through a port of entry. He said that is against the law. And in fact, federal law, he says all people on U.S. soil can apply for asylum no matter how they arrive.
That's what the president was saying. No more catch and release. It's going to be catch and return. And this guy says, no, that's not legal. As soon as they step foot on American soil, they can apply for asylum.
That, to me, seems fundamentally so wrong. They're probably going to work their way right up the court system. It reminds me of the whole travel ban. They'll change the language. They'll get it right. And ultimately, you would think the president would prevail out of pure logic. But when has logic really entered the fray? Let's see what DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen said yesterday to show that she's getting tougher. She says, this AM, all of San Ysidro Port of Entry's northbound lanes were temporarily closed to initiate additional port hardening efforts after CBP officials were notified that a large number of caravan migrants were planning to rush the border in an attempt to gain illegal access to the United States of America. Good job. Because they start running through the traffic, they're going to get through.
Well, multiple sources contacted DHS and they said this is going to happen, and that's why they decided to close those lanes.
See, look at what the Army has done at the border.
Yeah, they put all that the
Concertina wire. 12 miles of it in all.
Well, there are 26 passenger lanes there, 22 pedestrian lanes. It's the nation's largest border crossing. Kirstjen Nielsen, they said, we're going to stop traffic coming in from Mexico so that we can fix this problem and we can put up some barriers.
Tommy Lahren was on with us, and she says, hey, Mexico, you're upset about this presence here of illegal immigrants in your town? We understand the feeling. Listen.
They're fed up, and they have every right to be fed up, because any citizen of any nation should be upset and outraged when there's an invasion by foreigners into their country, people that have no respect for the rule of law, for sovereignty, for borders. So I absolutely understand their frustration, and I hope that my fellow Americans in California will look what's happening in Tijuana and understand that this is not something that we want to come into the United States either.
Just one other component. The Department of Homeland Security has told Fox News that they have identified more than 500 criminals that are traveling in the caravan. And the caravan is largely single adult or teen males. They do, according to this report, place women and children up front for the purpose of getting more sympathetic news coverage.
That report said there's 6,000 migrants now in Tijuana on the border.
And more coming.
changing that city. 4 minutes now after the hour. The other big story is on the Democratic side with their leadership. Don't blame President Trump for this. Turns out that Nancy Pelosi's having a lot of trouble consolidating her power and getting over the threshold that would make her speaker again, first time since 2010. Finally, the rumors of 16 people signing a letter going out again saying they will not vote for Nancy Pelosi has begun public. They released the letter, and these 16 Dems are there. Now, the word is there's a whole bunch of others in the hopper. They want to see where this is going, because if Pelosi gets confirmed, as if she ends up getting the votes, they don't want to be on her bad list.
I know. I thought that was pretty courageous of them to put their names forward and sign the letter, because if she does become speaker, she's not going to be happy with them.
Right. Part of the letter said this.
We also recognize that in this recent election, Democrats ran and won on a message of change. Our majority came on the backs of candidates who said that they would support new leadership because voters in hard-won districts and across the country want to see real change in Washington. We promised to change the status quo, and we intend to deliver on that promise.
But they're all over the place. I mean, they have some that got elected by pretending to be Republicans/moderates, others who went way to the left, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's protesting against Nancy Pelosi 1 minute. The next minute, she was releasing a brand new green agenda. Nancy Pelosi, to her credit, says easy on the impeachment thing. If there's something that comes out in the Mueller probe that maybe warrants it, okay. But right now, that's not a good move for us. And that's taking off a lot of those people who got elected by being to the left of Nancy Pelosi.
Well, there is a woman who is a congresswoman from Ohio, a Democrat, Marcia Fudge. She is publicly opposed. Pelosi is mulling a run against her. She's going to think about it through the holiday weekend. Also, there's a Democrat from Colorado by the name of Diana DeGette. She withdrew her challenge to be the number 3 top Democrat, currently held by James Clyburn. It's unclear exactly why she did that, but nonetheless, there is such a fight going on at the top of the Democratic Party in the House. And Brian, you mentioned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. When you watch the news coverage from Washington, D.C., she seems to be in about every third story because she is very popular.
Darling.
And this is her observation about the Democrats who are opposing Nancy Pelosi publicly.
I think that what it does is that it creates a window where we could potentially get more conservative leadership. And when you actually look at the signatories, it is not necessarily reflective of the diversity of the party. We have about 16 signatories. 14 of them are male. There are very few people of color in the caucus. There's very few ideological diversity. Yeah. It's not like there are progressives that are signing on. It's not like you have a broad-based coalition. I'm not totally bought into the concept.
Well, she's brand new to how Washington works. Nancy Pelosi has been there for a very long time. The Washington Post did a poll, who should be the next Speaker of the House, and Nancy Pelosi finished on top, but only with a plurality, 49%. Another Democrat finished with 40, and then 10% said, I don't know.
They also asked Republicans, and 76% said that they would like to see someone other than Nancy Pelosi, and 58% of independents agreed.
Well, Donald Trump made it very clear. He would like to see Nancy Pelosi back in the job, said she's done a really good job. You've got to wonder whether or not simply having her as a target for Republicans is his motivation. But nonetheless, don't be surprised if it gets really close. Some Republicans vote for her to be Speaker just to put her in that job.
Right. We asked Steve Scalise that. He was basically laughed. Would Republicans vote for him? But the president really believes he can deliver Republicans if need be. And keep in mind this. This is a problem that Democrats have endemic in their system. They don't rotate out their leadership. Therefore, there's no incentive for their leadership to move on because they know the longer I stay, the more power I get. Right. So that's why Elijah Cummings is doing oversight. There's no mystery with who's going to be chairman of these committees. And there's no mystery that why Nancy Pelosi wouldn't want to, at 80 years old, to be Speaker of the House. With Republicans, and it leaves them vulnerable in these elections, they rotate them. So, therefore, you can say there's new leadership. Boehner's gone. Ryan's in. Ryan's gone. McCarthy's in. Right. It gives people a fresh shot.
They're trying to figure out who the new chairman of, rather, the ranking minority leaders who will be on the various committees right now. But I bet you, come the first week of January, Nancy Pelosi will be the next Speaker of the House.
I agree with you.
We'll see.
Let us know what you think. Do you think she should be?
All right. Meanwhile, Jillian's got some headlines.
That's right. Good morning. To you. Let's start with this Fox News alert. And 3 people are dead, including a police officer and a doctor, after a gunman opens fire at a hospital. Hundreds of police cars lining the streets of Chicago to honor fallen officer Samuel Jimenez.
They did what the heroic officers always do. They ran towards that gunfire because that's what we do.
Officer Jimenez was with the department for 18 months and leaves behind a wife and 3 kids. Police say the violence started when suspect Juan Lopez killed his ex-fiancée, Dr. Tamara O'Neill, in the hospital parking lot. He then gunned down Officer Jimenez and a female employee. Lopez was also shot and killed. The founder of the Women's March calling for the group's current leadership to step aside. Teresa Shook criticizing Carmen Perez, Bob Bland, Linda Sarsour, and Tamika Mallory as anti-Semitic and anti-gay rights. She writes on Facebook, quote, "My original vision and intent was to show the capacity of human beings to stand in solidarity and love." Adding the Women's March leaders have steered the movement away from its true course. Florida officials are certifying election results today. It comes after 2 weeks of recount chaos in key races. The final results confirm Republicans Rick Scott as Florida's new senator and Ron DeSantis as governor. Brenda Snipes, the embattled Broward County elections supervisor, has resigned. This game lived up to the hype. The LA Rams come out on top in the highest scoring Monday Night Football game ever.
Goff on first down. Wow! Touchdown Rams!
Man, the Rams scoring a late touchdown for a 54-51 win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Before the game, the Rams honoring first responders from the Woolsey fire and Thousand Oaks shooting. Players also greeted people affected by the tragedies.
That was supposed to be in Mexico City. The field was so bad they moved it back to Los Angeles, gave away a lot of tickets. That is a Super Bowl preview.
Absolutely.
People think it's a badly played game. It was just awesome football.
And the Rams are unstoppable.
Right. Wasn't the final score the highest number of points scored in any Monday Night Football?
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right, Jillian, thanks so much.
Jillian.
By the way, that was a CBS poll we were citing earlier, not Washington Post. Meanwhile, Stacey Abrams just can't stand that she lost to Brian Kemp for governor in Georgia.
Do you believe that you lost your election fair and square?
No, I do not.
You think you should have won?
No, I'm saying that we won't know.
Well, Georgia Governor-elect Brian Kemp is here to respond in his first national TV interview since winning. He's coming up next.
And first it was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and now there's another New York City Democrat with a socialist agenda. Mayor Bill de Blasio's new plan for control. Coming up.
After a fierce battle, the Georgia governor's race finally over, kinda, with Brian Kemp winning by 55,000 votes. His opponent, though, Stacey Abrams, conceding the race, but not exactly accepting the results.
It was not a free and fair election. We had thousands of Georgians who were purged from the rolls wrongly. It was not fair to the thousands that were put on hold with their registrations. Brian Kemp oversaw for 8 years the systematic and systemic dismantling of our democracy, and that means there could not be free and fair elections in Georgia this year.
What an accusation. Here to react in his first national TV interview since winning the governor's race is Governor-elect, soon-to-be former Secretary of State for Georgia, Brian Kemp. Governor, you won by 55,000 votes, but clearly Stacey Abrams is not accepting it. Basically, it seems like she's saying you cheated by canceling 1.4 million people off voter rolls since 2011. What's your reaction?
Well, look, Brian, I'm moving on. I'm the governor-elect. The election's been certified. This is indeed over, and I'm looking forward to serving hard-working Georgians, and that includes all of them, by the way. But look, it's unfair for her to blame, especially local elections officials that are following the law when it comes to these things for registration, how things are conducted on Election Day. In Georgia, we have secure, accessible, fair elections. We make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And we saw the easy to vote part. We had 1.4 million more voters in this election than we did in the last governor's race, a historic turnout. We have 1 million more people on the rolls because I pushed for and implemented online voter registration where people could register to vote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If my opponent and her activist groups had used the online system, they wouldn't have had as many problems as they did with folks that they were registering. And by the way, the pending list, my daughter was one of those folks on the pending list because she was 17 and a half when she registered, and you have to be 18 to be on the list. So the day she turned 18, she came off pending, went on the voter rolls, and she voted for me on November the 6th. So the process worked down here. We're proud of that. You know, nobody's questioning the Democrats' wins, knocking off one of our congresswomen in the state of Georgia. They're not questioning the local races that they won. So this is really just political rhetoric, but that's in the past. I'm moving forward and looking forward to governing our great state.
She says that you set up less polling locations, especially in urban areas.
Well, that's just a mistruth. The county elections officials, the local elections boards have the sole responsibility for how many polling locations they have and where they are. That has been the rule of law and the way it works in Georgia under Republican and Democrat secretaries of state. So that's just not true. And by the way, the one county that this was an issue with before the election, they are controlled by Democrats. You know, so she's blaming me for a problem that they created. It's just ridiculous. And people didn't buy it in this election, which is why I got the most votes ever in a Georgia governor's race.
She also says this exact match law didn't work on to her behalf. What is the exact match law?
Well, look, we have laws on the books in Georgia, and I know she may not like some of the laws, but we take an oath of office, and the county elections officials have a duty to follow the law and the elections rules that we have in our state, and we check citizenship. We require people to show a photo ID when they go vote, and we verify this information before people go on the voter rolls. But you know, if people had simply used the online system where you just put your driver's license information in, they could get registered to vote. But 75% of the people on this list, Brian, could not fill out the last four of their social. Governor, she's blaming me and local elections officials for that. It's ridiculous.
Right, and she is, to her credit, pushing back on Hollywood, who wants to boycott your state because they think this whole election was on the up and up. So give Stacey Abrams credit for that. Congratulations to you, Governor. You won by 55,000 votes and the biggest turnout, one of the biggest turnouts ever. Thanks so much. More Fox and Friends in just a moment. Governor Brian Kemp.
7:24 here in New York City. Some quick headlines for you. Attorney Michael Avenatti tweeting he will be fully exonerated after being arrested for domestic violence. He also claims there's video evidence. It comes hours after court records obtained by The Blast show actress Marilee Nudie filed for a restraining order against the attorney. It is unclear if she is the same woman involved in last week's domestic violence incident. And actress Heather Locklear is placed on a psychiatric hold. According to TMZ, her therapist and lawyer sent the help after a mental breakdown. Locklear has dealt with a series of arrests and hospitalizations this year alone. All right, Ainsley.
All right, thank you, Steve. In August 2005, Army Reservist Staff Sergeant Jimmy McNaughton, there's his picture right there, was the first active duty NYPD officer to die while serving our great country in Iraq, killed by a sniper. Today, his family and fellow officers are outraged after a Manhattan Community Board down in Tribeca rejected their request to co-name a street after him. Just co-name it, not even rename it. Now they are petitioning the city to overturn the board's decision and to honor Jimmy's sacrifice. Here with us now are Jimmy's wonderful parents, Bill and Michelle McNaughton, both also retired NYPD officers. Thank you so much for serving our great country and our city. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Tell us what happened. Why did the board vote? They voted 21-12 against just co-naming the street after your son.
There was a couple of different reasons. I just don't get the silly ones. To me were the confusing taxi cab drivers and too many signs on a pole.
But they do it for celebrities. A lot of these streets are co-named.
But the one that really bothered me the most, it was always one in the crowd, is the anti-war activist guy that stood up and said his piece, you know, and you really can't go back at them. But I just couldn't, you know, as a soldier, I was in the Army myself, but a soldier doesn't have a choice. He goes where the president tells him to go. You know, when this guy was saying I was against the war and all that, you really want to say something.
It's not Jimmy's fault, right?
Right. You know, he's just doing what he's told to do. But I just don't get it. Plain and simple, I just don't get it. We followed the District 2 guys, his fellow officers, followed the rules, what they had to do. I thought it was a done deal, and the community said no.
Michelle, as a mother, I mean, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. He graduates from high school. He does 5 years active duty for our country. He becomes a New York City police officer, following in both of your footsteps because he admired what you did. And then he's in the Army Reserves and is killed in Iraq at such a young age. Tell me more about him, how you want him to be remembered.
Jimmy lived life to the fullest. You know, we always joke that Jimmy saw more than we did. He traveled in his 5 years in the Army. Switzerland, he snowboarded, broke his wrist there. We thought it would be a problem getting on the police department because he had to have a pin put in. You know, he was a fun-loving, respectful kid. His friends he's had since elementary school, and they'll all tell you, like, if you left your hat on during the national anthem, he'd smack you in the back of the head. Be like, hey, buddy, you know, this is our national anthem. He loved our country. And Bill and I always say he died doing what he loved, and that gives us peace, if, you know, that helps. It's hard to explain, but he could have been run over by a car, you know, and he died doing what he loved. Hopefully when it's my turn to go, it's doing what I love. So he was just really a good boy and a good man, and his friends, just everybody still to this day, they come and tell us stories, you know, and you just never know when someone's going to pop up and, hey, so.
You just had a picture on your screen I was watching. It was, rest in peace, Jimmy, follow me. That was in his unit took over Abu Ghraib prison after the big scandal there, because you know, they were MPs. And on that wall it says, follow me. I called one of his platoon mates up, Richie Lotz. I said, Richie, right there. It says, follow me. I said, Richie, where did you get that? He goes, we thought he got it from you. And now I can't talk on the phone, because I always told Jimmy, when you lead men, you lead from the front. And his men followed him anywhere. I wish I could have all those guys here today and tell what type of man he is today. I don't know how, there's what, 3 kids named after Jimmy today. I have a friend of mine that has these coins I want to give to you and Brian and Steve.
You're so sweet.
These are the 3, it's an NYPD one made up by a friend of ours, Detective Sammy Ha. It's got Lem, Taylor, and Jimmy on it. But it just shows the character, like Michelle said before, we have people come up to me years later and say, what a guy Jimmy was and how he led me. And there's one guy is a physician assistant now because of Jimmy, because he instilled that, and he took care of his men, and that's the big thing here for me as a father. As a young kid come up to see, man, your son took care of me. You know, how much more can you be proud of your son?
That's wonderful. Every time we see NYPD officers, we always here at Fox say thank you to their faces. Many of us who are parents, we make our kids go up and say thank you, because we do appreciate the sacrifices.
Thank
and
you.
We know that I can't imagine what it's like for you, especially during the holiday season. But God bless you. Thank you for being here. We did reach out to the community board. They didn't get back to us. But there is a petition that people can sign.
Yes, it's up to 6,000 now.
Okay, what's the goal?
As many as we can get.
Now, if you get so many signatures, can you change the board's decision?
We did that already. Okay. You know, they needed a minimum requirement, and we met that, and we went to the board, and you saw it 21-12.
Like, their rules, they have rules in how to do this, and the District 2 cops followed those rules. My question is, if we followed the rules and did what was required, and you're only going to vote it down, then why do you even have something in place?
Right, why do you even have the rules? All right, if you want to sign the petition at home, and I know many of our viewers will want to do that, you can go to foxandfriends.com. And this is in honor of Staff Sergeant Jimmy McNaughton. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, guys.
Still ahead, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi and Mark Stein are going to join us live. Stay with us.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle.
You look a lot like Christmas at the White House, that is. That's your shot of the morning.
Wow, were you there for that? President Trump and the First Lady Melania were receiving the official Christmas tree delivered by a horse-drawn carriage. Every vehicle was out of gas.
The nearly 20-foot-tall Fraser fir, hand-picked from a farm in North Carolina. Over the next week or two, it's going to be decorated and then displayed ultimately in the Blue Room of the White House.
That's right. The guy who owns that farm down in North Carolina, he tried 5 times. You have to compete at the local level, and then if you're selected by your state, then you can go on. This is huge. The association that picks the Christmas tree, they really take it seriously, and that tree was gorgeous.
But how do they benefit from having their tree selected?
Because we're talking about them right now.
Yeah. They have a Fraser Fir tree farm down in North Carolina, and they can say, we provided the tree for the president, and then that draws a lot of people.
Oh, okay.
North Carolina's provided the most trees in the Blue Room than any other state.
That's fantastic. And the first president to put a Christmas tree in the White House?
Was it?
It's either Benjamin Harrison or Franklin Pierce. There's some debate about who put it first. Nonetheless, it's a happy tradition.
I know. Oh gosh, I'm losing his name. Who'd you write the book about?
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson was known as like a fierce guy, but he always had a fun, huge party inside the White House. And he had a snowball fight inside the White House using cotton balls.
Oh, so that is very interesting.
It's very important to Jackie.
And he didn't have any kids of his own. Meanwhile, Todd Pyro is having breakfast with friends in Quakertown at the Quakertown Family Restaurant in Quakertown, Pennsylvania.
Hey guys, good morning to all of you. No snowball fights here. Instead, we have a panel of pastors. It's going to be a little bit different than we've done some of these breakfasts with friends in the past. One big question to you guys. Many in the mainstream media say the way the president is treating the caravan is cruel. As pastors, as men who teach the word of Jesus Christ, how do you reconcile your support of the president's immigration policies with your faith?
Great to be with you, Todd. Well, it's kind of like we'd say this, that God loves everyone. God's compassionate. He wants all to go to heaven. But heaven's a perfect place. And to get into heaven, there's criteria. You have to come God's way. Enter into the straight gate. Wide is the gate that leads to destruction. Straight is the great gate that leads to life. You have to choose that path to enter into God's heaven. Same thing true of our country. Certain laws have to be followed. You have to come according to the law to get in. Once you follow the law, you can come. We welcome you. We love to have you. We have compassion. God's a God of great compassion. He wants all to be saved, but you got to come through Jesus. That's the only way of salvation. So that's how I view it.
David.
Enter in through Jesus Christ.
Thank you for your thoughts. John, same question to you.
I agree with Pastor Smith regarding salvation. The only way is through Jesus Christ. But as far as getting into our country, the question, how do you reconcile, is really a flawed question. So there's really no answer. You can't answer a flawed question. And I don't think that there is any reconciling that needs to be done. Our country is the most compassionate nation on the planet. And we accept more immigrants per year and per capita than any other nation, as I understand it. And so why should that be laid at our feet? We give more money in financial aid, or we give more financial aid to these countries all over the world who need assistance. And so it shouldn't be laid at our charge. We're the most compassionate. Why are we considered the least compassionate? And so these folks are also, regarding the caravan that's down there, when it comes to them, if they're seeking asylum, our nation does accept people who are truly seeking political asylum or being persecuted in some way. These people are coming waving their country's flag, and they're coming just looking for work, which I feel bad that they need work. But the best way for them to change is not to make that treacherous journey up with families, women, and children, but to change the country where they're in. And if they would do that, they could proudly wave their flag and stay in their own in their home country. So I just don't think that there's anything to reconcile.
Pastor John, thank you. And finally, Pastor David, same question to you.
Yes, sir. I just believe that people need to follow the laws. And if they're going to come here, they need to come in the right way. You can't just come and break the rules. There's a certain way, a right way of doing things.
Right.
And I had a friend ask me that, how do you reconcile you calling yourself a Christian and not wanting to receive people? And we do want to receive people, but we want to receive them in the right way. So I believe they have to follow the laws.
Pastor David, thank you very much. Send on back to New York City. Pretty interesting, right, guys?
Indeed it is. All right, Todd Pyro with the pastor panel in Pennsylvania. All right.
Thank you.
Good enough. All right, 22 minutes now before the top of the hour, and Jillian joins us with a story about the guy behind one of the biggest countdown shows in radio.
Yeah. Okay, so let's tell you what's going on here. The family of legendary DJ Casey Kasem accusing each other of killing him.
I love that man so much. I would have died for him.
Jean killed my father. What she did led to his death.
The battle between Kasem's second wife and his grown children from a previous marriage laid out in this week's 48 hours. Kasem died from a Parkinson's-like disease in 2014. Police are opening a new investigation into his death. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is feeling a new socialistic impulse. He thinks the government should control every plot of land and buildings in his city. Speaking with New York Magazine, de Blasio says, in part, quote, "I think people all over the city of every background would like to have the city government be able to determine which building goes where, how high it will be, who gets to live in it, what the rent will be." So right now, people are lining up to buy pot in Massachusetts. Recreational marijuana will go on sale there in just a few minutes. It comes more than 2 years after the state voted to legalize recreational use. A local mayor and a disabled Iraq War veteran will make the first 2 purchases. Massachusetts is the 7th state to permit retail marijuana shops. And look at this. 3 little girls think they're just going to a hockey game, but they wind up getting the holiday surprise of a lifetime.
Let's see who's behind us to help you figure out the puzzler tonight. Fans, please welcome home American hero Sergeant Daniel Lehman. He spent the last year...
Sergeant Lehman of the Pennsylvania Army National Guard surprising his daughters at a Pittsburgh Penguins game. He spent the last 11 months in Kuwait, and he did grow up a diehard Penguins fan, and he passed that on to his wife and his girls. Penguins lost, but in that situation, it's like, who cares?
They won. They won right there.
I love the way, as the crowd realized who he was, they all stood up and gave him a stand.
And all the girls had their big bows on.
I know.
Kisses his wife.
That's great. All right. Thank you
Welcome
very much.
home.
Yeah. Where's Janice Dean?
She's outside with the folks.
Look at this amazing crowd that we've got out here today. Oh my gosh, where are you guys from? What are your names?
We're from Tennessee. My name is Lisa.
And what group are you from?
We're with the American Festival Choir. We sang at Carnegie Hall on Saturday night.
Are you going to give us a little taste?
Just a little taste.
Do it. And while we do that, look at the amazing folks that came to see us on Fox and Friends. Okay, give us your best singing voice right now.
Mary had a baby and she laid him in a manger. Good news, the Savior is born this day.
Nay.
Like the angel said, she named the baby Jesus. He came to free us and to make a way.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. Let's take a look at the maps real quick. I have 2 storm systems I just want to talk about, the Northeast and the West Coast. If you are traveling today, you want to call ahead. So there's colder air coming down. We have the potential for snow showers across the Northeast as well as the West Coast. Central U.S. looks great. Thank you all for coming today. Oh my gosh. Hi, Mom from Starkville, Mississippi. This is fantastic. The crowds are getting bigger. Fox and Friends fans are here.
They love you, Janice.
They do, and we love them.
And we're going to hear more from the group in just a minute. But in the meantime, Democrats are making a big push for Beto O'Rourke in 2020. Would that be a big mistake? Our next guest says not necessarily.
And more mega morning deals for you. Pearls for 90% off, scarves for 80% off, watches for 90% off. They're practically giving them all away.
The most dramatic races of the 2018 midterms finally wrapping up, with Brian Kemp winning the state of Georgia as governor and Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis claiming victory in Florida. But with all their Democratic opponents challenging the races right until the bitter end, what lessons can both parties learn from the midterms as we head to the next election in 2020? Here to discuss, we got the co-founder and president of RealClearPolitics.com, Tom Bevan, joining us, as you can see, from Chicago. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, so while some people might debate whether or not there was a blue wave or whether it was a big wave or a little wave or barely a wave, there are certain things we are learning about where America's mind is when it comes to going to the polls, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a couple of lessons for Democrats with these 2 races in particular. I mean, Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum were charismatic candidates. They were good candidates, but in the end, they were too far to the left for the population of the states that they were trying to represent. They were far left on a bunch of issues. Stacey Abrams wanted to ban AR-15s in the state of Georgia. Not a good position to take. Andrew Gillum wanted Medicare for all, abolish ICE. I mean, he was really sort of far left. And I think that, more than anything, doomed those candidacies. And so as Democrats look toward 2020, they need to take that into consideration, particularly as we look at the upper Midwest, which is where the 2020 battle is going to be won or lost.
When you look at Donald Trump's favorability going into 2020 as well, you got to figure when you look at the midterms, he needs to do better with independents and he's got to do better with women, right?
Exactly. The gender gap was huge this year. Women went for Democrats by 19 points on November 6th. That's something that Republicans have to figure out how to stop the slide among women, and particularly in suburban women. And then independents. Donald Trump won them in 2016. They went for Democrats this year by 12 points. So that's another, and it was 30% of the electorate. So a big chunk of the electorate that Republicans have to win back if they're going to have, and if Donald Trump is going to have a chance at winning re-election.
Sure. And one of the things that the Democrats were very effective at was running on health care. They didn't have a plan. They just said the Republicans are going to take it from you. That's going to be very potent going forward.
Very potent, and I think both parties, Democrats are going to go in and try and make some moves on healthcare. We'll see whether they can actually legislate anything or not. But Republicans they have to handle this. It was the #1 issue by far. We sort of knew that going in, but Republicans were playing on defense, and they have to turn around and I think have an answer for that. The economy turned out to be tied for #2, #3 issue, and even among the people who thought the economy was going well, 40% of those people voted for the Democrats. So it was not the economy, stupid, this year.
Meanwhile, down in Texas, Ted Cruz beat Beto O'Rourke by over 2 points. And yet, when you look toward 2020, some people are talking about maybe he should be, the guy who lost should either be running as president or might be considered a vice presidential pick.
Yeah, typically losing a Senate election is not a launching pad to the presidency, but Beto generated a lot of enthusiasm and raised a lot of money, and that puts him in the conversation in a wide-open race.
And times have changed. This is, politics are not like they used to be, so anything is possible.
That's right.
All right. Tom, thank you very much for joining us from Chicago. All right. Meanwhile, while you were sleeping, an Obama-appointed judge just blocked the Trump administration's asylum ban. Details on that coming up in about 10 minutes. Plus, pearls for 90% off, scarves for 80% off. And we've got more Mega Morning deals for you coming up on this Tuesday morning live from New York City. Hey, Megan.
Well, it is never too early to start your Christmas shopping, and we have some more deals exclusively for Fox and Friends for you, the viewer. Megan Meany with Mega Morning Deals is back with us. Hey, Megan, good to see you.
Hi.
Okay, so one of your top sellers is always the jewelry.
Absolutely.
And you bring these pearls back every year because they're so gorgeous.
And real, by the way. They come with a certificate of authenticity. These are doghouse pearls. So many styles that you can see here. And you don't even have to wrap it, which we love because they come in these pretty boxes. So typically, real pearls like this would go for a lot more money. 87% off today. Normally, they can go for like $350. So you're going to get them for $25 to $75 if you go to the Fox and Friends website and click on the Mega Morning Deals icon.
You have the necklaces and you have earrings too.
Yeah, and triple little bracelets here.
Beautiful. Now I know these do well too because these are real cashmere scarves.
Pashmina cashmere. We have two styles this year. These are so popular. The fringe is a little bit bigger and a little thicker. You know, good for, you said, weddings, church,
church, restaurants,
here in the
when we get cold. Exactly.
So only $29.
And they're beautiful.
$29. You're going to save 80% today. They're normally $150. Great colors. See Me Cashmere. So grab those. They're going to go fast on the site. Love this. This is a little, check it out, roll out keyboard, Bluetooth keyboard. So when you have your phone or you have your iPad and you don't want to do the little tiny thumb texting, you just hook it up, Bluetooth, open up your email, open up your text, and you can type like a real keyboard. And you don't need batteries. It's rechargeable, lasts like 80 hours, $19. That's a huge savings, 71% off today, guys.
Okay, look at this cool
You're
watch.
modeling the Oceanaut watch. What I love about this is it's Japanese and Swiss detail. Beautiful, beautiful watch. Beautiful details. Also comes in a nice box. Waterproof and great colors. $59. That's up to 89% off today. These usually go for $450, you guys.
And you can get these
Mega Morning Deals.
Fun colors, and the bands are squishy. Or you can get the gold and silver.
Yep. And now everybody's traveling this holiday, right? What I love about these, they're so light, you guys. You know, everybody's bag is packed too much, and you get in trouble, and you got to pay. But this sets you off on the right track because it's super light. A lot of the flight attendants use these. There's different levels for the handle. Lots of extra pockets. pockets.
wheels.
Travel Pro makes them, and there's 8 wheels, so they spin in all directions.
do you buy them in a set, or do you buy them individually?
You can buy them individually, so typically they'd go for up to $400, but you're going to get them for $79 to $99. So that's 75% off. And when you go on the site today, guys, there's going to be even more stuff for you to buy at a great deal. So more than you see here on the table. So get there fast, get your shopping done early, and
Beautiful.
what else can we tell them?
Well, we need to tell them where to go. You go to foxandfriends.com, and you'll see the Mega Morning Deals icon.
Yep.
Click on that, and you can get all the stuff
Looks just like this.
That's right. That's
okay.
what it looks like.
Happy shopping, everybody.
Happy shopping. Almost Christmas time. Get on it. All right, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi and Mark Steiner both here live in the next hour, so stick around.